All right, so guys, here's how we are going to do this. Originally, Solomon was supposed to moderate this panel. I've had 24 hours of prep to be here. I got given questions. I'm literally going to read the questions. But I think, honestly, we kind of like it to be a little bit of a conversation. And I don't know that everybody on the panel needs to answer every question unless you really feel like you're bringing something to the table. Does that sound good? Everybody's
Deal.
Good? Everybody's good? We're good? We're feeling good? Everybody get a beer, wine, cocktail, snack? Okay, let's kick this off. All right. What was the order in which you built your tech stack, and specifically, what was the framework you used around selecting it and implementing each component? Who would like to go first? Andy, you've been nominated.
Sure. So I will start with kind of the other end of the spectrum, which is a little bit actually what we were talking about in the room next door. I think the number one thing that we thought about with Hart House was the vision for what we wanted to create for the brand first before selecting which pieces of tech we were going to build. And Hart House is unique in that with Kevin's persona behind the brand, there's immediately a data set of 400 million people that follow him on social media. And so everything that we did from a technology perspective was done through the lens of knowing, number one, we were probably going to make changes along the way. And number two, it needed to involve a data strategy from the outset that could handle incredibly large amounts of data and be able to customize that communication for both employees and customers. So for us, it was really about that decision first and foremost, and then taking a look at what would drive the guest experience. I'll decline to say which partners we chose and in which order, because I think these guys have much better things to say about that. But happy to answer questions for people afterwards as well.
We had a very similar experience. We decided where we wanted to be, and we made a point to put the technology in that would get us there at the beginning. We didn't want to put something in and have to change it a couple of years later, and so we did a lot of research on the front end. And the other key driver for us is we wanted to look bigger than we actually were. When we started this, we bought this at 3 units, and at 8 units, we convinced Olo to put us on the platform, which at the time was unheard of, but we're like, we want to look like a bigger company, a more professional company than we were at the time, and that drove a lot of our decisions.
For Dave started in a parking lot, so the first version of tech was a Sharpie marker on the top of a styrofoam container that said like Hooper, 2-tender combo, and so the very first version of POS was when they moved to a restaurant, and they weren't thinking big picture. So I think we're going on our 4th iteration of POS. So there's some definite learning in there with regard to like having a plan and then kind of looking at what you're going to be doing over the next period of time. But POS would definitely have been the first one, the first piece of tech. And then I guess the second layer of tech, I mean, there's training platforms, I would say. That was probably like the second big decision on the tech side. And then after that, it's like loyalty app. Leon, what else? CRM stuff on top of that. And then now, like we just layered Bitticks into our tech stack late last year. So it's very chunky, phased.
Well, now you have Leon.
Now we have Leon.
So he'll fix it. Similar to what Jason and Andy said is, it's really less about the logos as a specific answer. It's what is the problem? I inherited a brand, been around 30 years and had a lot of technology, but zero of it spoke to each other. And so really we noticed immediately what the inefficiencies were, what the cost of that opportunity was for us to fix. And so yes, we started with the point of sale / down the line, but actually the things we implemented fast were the easy things to implement, like Momo or Adentro, or some of these things that don't require an integration or require a partner or require development necessarily, that were easy to start to give us some information and work with those guys, easy to turn on. But at the end of the day, for me, it was what problem do I have to solve? I want to build a franchise system in North America that absolutely knocks the socks off of any other franchise system as a value prop, and tech or the operating system matters a lot, and it has to solve the problems to help my franchisees be most successful. And so that's the lens we put on first. We really think about does this do something positive? Kind of as you said this morning with your 5 things, we kind of use that same style test. So at the end of the day, what logos they are really don't matter because everybody has different needs and different ideas about what problems they're trying to solve. But I would just encourage everybody to think about it from that perspective first. And if you weren't here this morning, ask Rev what his 5 test question list is to make these kinds of decisions, because I think it's really, really smart.
Thank you. I don't want to make this panel about me, but I would. And I just want to say something real quick, that if Jason looks up, he sat underneath his face. And Jim sat underneath his face.
I was told where to go.
But the 2 Hooper sat under the other Hooper. So I just want to be clear that the Hooper thing is real.
That's right.
Andy told me to go first.
I didn't realize that we had assigned seats.
No. Yeah.
based on our
I
image.
actually, I have OCD, so I have to.
So if anybody else feels that they can fill the seat of a Hooper,
Yes.
I'll
Hey, by the
remove-
way,
I'll
it's
remove
reversed up on the screen in front of us, so I was in the right spot.
You guys all gave very intelligent but different answers. And so the name of the panel is about the tech stack. I'm going to add a question here. Do you see it as a stack, meaning I got to make this decision, then this decision, then this decision, and this decision? Or do you see it more of like an ecosystem? This decision and that decision have to happen analogous. Like, do you see it that way? Does it look different? I don't think either answer is wrong, but
I think the first thing that you have to do is treat the business process as an ecosystem. I'm not sure that there's a recipe for stacking technology or making sure that you're making those decisions in concert with one another. But I believe the biggest challenge facing early stage growth restaurant concepts is the temptation of what I'll call like feature porn, which is like you're meeting with a technology partner, you think you know what your business is, and you get the whataboutism of like, hey, but what about this cool thing? And I think it's really important to stay disciplined on what the business process is that you are solving for. And I didn't get to see Rev this morning, but I'm sure somewhere in that list is something that speaks to the idea that if you have clarity about what you're looking for a partner to solve, then you're going to be much better off at selecting the vendor partner that's going to fit for you. And I think you just take a kitchen right now in many people's restaurants. I can't tell you the number of kitchens I see where there's Olo rails on the back line and a chit being printed out and tossed down the line, and an iPad. And watch what the people on the back line use to do their work, to tell you what the business process is. Then you can start to figure out what the right technology partner is. And so for me, I look at the decision of each individual tech as being kind of separate, but the business process is more of an ecosystem play. And honestly, we try to start at the customer and work our way to the bank instead of starting at the bank and working your way back to the customer.
I think what we've learned at Dave's through the experience of starting with the wrong POS and then moving through multiple is that the POS is sort of like the foundation of a house. It's all of the various pieces that have to plug into that, or all of your subs that have to come in, and your plumbing has to plug into wherever the holes were for the plumbing, and so on and so forth. The windows have to fit into the window holes. And so starting with the POS is like the number one, and then everything else plugs into that. And we've done it very much in that vein, where it's more plugins rather than using all of, for example, our POS, which we're piloting with Q and probably moving in that direction here very soon. We will have a KDS provider that plugs into Q rather than using Q's KDS. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but just because it allows us to make all of the adjustments as we go forward very independently, I guess, of the other pieces that have to connect to it. So I think that's for us the big learning, or the way you stack it for us has been starting with the center or the nucleus and then plugging in all of the other pieces.
Yeah, it was very sequential for us. Like we started with POS, like probably is the best place to start. But having come from bigger companies, our eyes and what we wanted was bigger than our checkbook, and so we had to phase it in, and not only phase it in from a monetary standpoint, but phase it in from a people standpoint. One of the things that I would recommend that if you can afford an IT person early on in your business, hire an IT person. If you can't, find an outsourced partner that's going to help you. because it's sort of the foundation of scaling any business, I think, is what systems you have in place.
What they said. Rev, actually, my answer is, for those that might not have been here this morning, give the 5 questions you asked to decide whether to score them.
So here's how I evaluate tech and how I think everybody should evaluate tech. There are 5 questions. Does it make or save me time? Does it make or save me money? Does it integrate with my non-negotiables? Does it enhance the guest experience? And does it enhance the team experience? If it hits all 5, you should probably get it. If it hits 3, you should still probably get it. But
Yeah, I mean, my answer is an amalgamation of everybody so far is there's no wrong answer. The wrong answer is sort of feature porn, is like getting the cool thing for the cool thing. You know, at the end of the day, and I don't remember what questions are coming up, so I'll just say it now, is it's really about implementation. But before implementation, after the sale, it's really about involving your stakeholders. You can't just make this decision from the top. I mean, that's the title of this thing is, you know, if you're at the top, you're making decisions about tech. That is definitely the wrong way to go about it, because you're going to find yourself making big mistakes. I think you have to involve the stakeholders, and that is the customer, that is the employee, that is the team members, leadership in different departments. And you may not realize how one decision or one technology, one implementation affects all the other people. You've got to ask the whole team. And whether you start from the top down or the bottom up, or, you know, bring the whole team together and have this conversation. I'm a big fan of like the committee. All right, I need you on a task force. I need to know how this is going to affect your job, your department, your colleagues, and what problems do you have that this is or is not solving? And is it actually solving all the things I think it's solving? Because it may not, right? So I just take that sort of holistic approach. So to answer your question directly, you know, it's an ecosystem not just of the technologies, but an ecosystem of the stakeholders that have to interact, utilize, and otherwise they just won't use it. And I think we've all experienced that.
okay, moving forward, we are not going to call them stakeholders anymore. They will now be known as the Hoopers.
Okay.
Everybody's on board in this room? Okay, good. I'm here to make it a little lighter. All right. All right. Andy, you started to go down this path, but let's talk about picking vendors. Other than whatever my 5-point system is, how do you balance what you need right now with where you're going or what's coming next? Like, are you making decisions that solve the problems now, or are you trying to solve it like 10 years down the line, 2 locations down the line? What does that look like?
I'll go last on this one.
Okay. Yeah, you have to think about the future. I have a unique scenario in that I'm trying to think about the rest of the globe. I've got 500 restaurants in Asia, and it's a completely different world. They don't have any 2 technologies that talk to each other, but they only pay $10 to $20 a month for any technology. When we did an architectural map of it recently, we actually found out we're spending about $1,100 per store per month. And so really quick, the idea that we can't afford it or that's too expensive went away when they realized, what if we just replaced 12 things with 4 things that talk to each other and bring us efficiency? So at the end of the day, for us, I'm having to think about not only the future of this brand as it grows and scales, but how do we retro in an entire ecosystem of 15 countries that all do it differently because of how this brand was built and sold over the years. And that's going to take 10 years. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts. We're going to have to mandate our tech stack and get people to come on board slowly on different versions of it or different depths of it, and then just bring them on over time. And eventually it has to be mandated through renewals of your franchise agreement for us, being an all franchise system mostly. But we do have 126 corporate stores in 3 countries we get to play with. So we do have a test ecosystem. So we at least have a room to try it, prove it, and then sell it to everybody else.
Okay, you are clearly solving a very unique problem that we all do not have.
Dave's all franchise also, so I think it sort of depends on what the soup of the day is in terms of like what's going on right now. So Dave's is all about growth and will continue to be all about growth for the next probably 3 to 5 years. And as those, as that is very clear to us, getting caught up in any new like right now tech, sort of we stay focused on the growth side of things. And for example, like with the POS, and it does really come back to the POS, it has to stand up and stay up if we're going to open 5 restaurants a week at some point, or I think our record is 7 in 1 week. We can't have 3 stores falling down because do we have 3 people in IT? I think we have 4 people in IT. So you can't have as many restaurants as you have people that are opening at the same time and not be able to keep them going. So I think in more legacy situations, maybe the focus is a little bit different. You have to make the decisions differently, but I think it ultimately comes down to the analogy of the house. Whatever the foundation is and then the plugins, or at least for us, that's sort of the way we're attacking it.
Yeah, there were a couple things that we focused on. We wanted to make sure we could get the data out of the systems. A lot of these systems, the point of sale systems, don't have very good reporting. And so we layered in, a data warehousing tool to give us data to understand the business, and we use it daily. Like it's like if you want an answer to something, you could go get it pretty quickly. And the second piece of advice I'd have is don't believe everything the salesmen tell you for these brands. Because many a time it is not exactly the features that you ask for or not the features that you get. And so do your research, go talk to vendors or go talk to other companies that are using the software. Stray away from the list of references that they give you and talk to folks that are using the system at conferences like this.
Andy, can I just caveat or amplify something Jason just said? Since half the room is salespeople, don't bullshit, and make sure if you're going to give us a reference, that reference isn't leaving you in 2 weeks. That actually happened to me recently. I appreciate that you're really proud of your reference, but just make sure they're happy with you. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, talk about what you can do. I think for the operators in the room, roadmap is a very big red flag. Yes, everybody has a roadmap. I have a roadmap for my business. These guys all have a roadmap for their business. I'm telling you what I believe is going to happen. It may or may not actually come to fruition. There's a lot of external forces. Same thing in tech. So sorry, just thought I'd do a little infomercial for the tech people in the room. PSA. Very good.
I'll just say this, which is at Hart House, we don't have a loyalty program today. We didn't have online ordering when we first opened. We didn't start doing delivery until we had been in business for about a year. When we started working on the brand, we knew we wanted to do all of those things, but we knew our business process was still under development. We were starting a brand new menu, a new cuisine type, a new service model. And so my advice and counsel would be patient and thoughtful. You can still lean forward, but there's nothing wrong with making sure that your employee experience and your guest experience are great. So then when you use those 5 screeners, you're actually not compromising on your guest experience. There's nothing that instills more FOMO than having a business partner with 400 million followers and no loyalty program. I'm just chomping at the bit to do something with that. But if you're playing more of an infinite game with it, then there's time. You can be patient and you continue to execute at a really high level. Then eventually technology is going to unlock for you in ways that it just can't if you're not ready.
I have a very specific question for you that has nothing to do with this.
Okay.
How did you handle any negative feedback that might have came in from the amount of curse words that Kevin Hart used in the Tom Brady roast? That
What's
didn't land
fascinating
for any of you. None of you saw that.
You launched an LTO that started with an F, right?
It's funny. One of the benefits and drawbacks of working with Kevin is that his reputation is pretty well established at this point in time. And so when we did a SWOT analysis, when I first started working together, the number one strength was Kevin. The number one weakness was Kevin. The number one opportunity was Kevin, and the number one threat was Kevin.
So you basically evaluated him as if he was a tech stack?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Follow-up question to that. Let's go a little deeper. And you guys kind of touched on this a little bit. What are the key questions that you ask tech vendors to ensure it's a right fit, not for right now, but for the growth, like where you're going, the roadmap? Man, you guys wrote these questions.
No, I guess.
No, we didn't.
I think we're trying to. Oh no. Jim, you go first.
Oof. So say it again. What are the questions you ask the vendors?
What are the questions you're asking vendors to make sure they're the right fit for now and the roadmap?
So we just did recently. We went through a whole process with Q, and during that evaluation process, and specifically during the kind of the Q&A, where I was in the room, our CFO was in the room, our CEO was in the room. As you go through it, you get a real sense of whether they actually have the pieces put together in their mind versus sort of to Troy's comment a minute ago, oh, that's on the roadmap, or we're working on that, or we don't quite have that yet. when they're able to sort of articulate how the pieces fit together, or even a timeline for some new feature that's coming soon, we'll have that released next Thursday or by the end of June or whatever. Those things to me, and I watch people in their body language and how they are responding, and if it's all of a sudden, you remember that scene in Ferris Bueller's Day Off when the principal's trying to answer the call and Patty Poole, whatever her name is going when somebody starts answering with the then you know, like, okay, that's probably not a real answer. So I think it's less about the specific questions and more about sort of the finesse and the way they answer the question. Do they avert their eyes? Do they have specifics? And I think that's a very important piece.
I try to evaluate partners in the same way that I feel like private equity or investors evaluate me, which is that
They ask
there's
really insane questions you don't know how to answer.
that there's a bunch of different ways in which you can make money in the world. Selling SaaS licenses to restaurateurs is not the easiest way to make money, but you can. And I like to look for partners who have a genuine interest in operating restaurants. Like, you can tell when you're talking to somebody who's providing a solution that's made for frontline workers or made for enhancing the guest experience. And that looks and feels a bit different in conversation than one that looks like it's about ARR. And I think somebody who's selling a solution and patient enough to help bring the industry along towards a new place, especially if you're selling something that might have unpopular headlines or other things surrounding it at times, you have to be very patient. And I think you want to find partners that are invested in the success of the employees of your business. And I like to ask questions about that to figure out, like, does somebody want to actually get in a kitchen and work alongside somebody in my business to figure out how their tool works in real life?
I'm going to insert a question that wasn't in here, but I think it's probably going to help half of the room. What is the best way for a tech vendor to get your attention?
Same answer. So know what my problem is, present to me that you know what my problem is, and that you have an idea of how to solve at least part of it. Don't try to be everything to everybody, and don't try to claim you're going to solve all of any one problem or all of my problems. Just to Andy's point, know what my problems are and ask me, have I solved it? Do I want to solve it? Is that a problem I even fucking have? Like, let's go there. We all get solicited all day, every day. Genuine, authentic, human connection. I'll do the hour demo whether I need you or not, because you were a real person and you asked me a real question. And actually, to the last question, similarly, the answer is answer my questions about your product with questions about my problems. Ask me, well, is that a problem, or does this feature matter to you? Because what happens is we get on a call, we get on a demo, we go by your booth, and you try to solve every problem that you think your product solves in the first 12 minutes, and then you stop talking. And I actually had another executive tell me yesterday, yeah, I did a demo and it took him 40 minutes before he stopped talking. I was like, don't talk for 40, and I've had that happen, like 20, 30 minutes. Like, start by asking questions, and then you understand me. And I think if you're trying to understand us, and not just us, I mean, we're sitting here at the top, and we have lots of support team. Leon's sitting here, sending Jim things in his ear.
We're actually connected.
Yeah, you're connected mentally.
Like the board.
I just love that Q and Leon are sitting right in front of Jim, so it's funny.
I
don't have any support. Momo, where are you?
There's hand signals.
But yeah, ask questions. Ask us what matters to the roadmap. Hey, we're looking at working on this. Can we collaborate? Can you help us understand in a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, is this something that matters? Should we be working on that?
Yeah, we've liked working with smaller vendors that are very open to improving their product because we like to give lots of suggestions, and we want to be there alongside them to help better their product. And so a lot of our best relationships are folks that maybe we took a chance on, that were early in their process, and I think we both have benefited from that.
I think that's a really good point. I like the last 4 or 5 vendors, and I used to fancy myself as someone who would come to one of these conferences and be impervious to everybody that's saying something, just block, move. And I've taken more calls and more demos and then actually tried it, piloted it, and implemented it. But the thing that sort of is the tipping point are the vendors that are willing to adjust or customize the scrappy sort of approach of like, oh, we can do that, we can make that happen, we can do exactly what you're asking for. To Troy's point too about being able to solve a problem that we have, I think that's sort of the key to saying I definitely want it.
We've got one vendor that whenever we have a suggestion, they say, send it to this email. They're not my favorite vendor. We have other vendors that then pick up the phone and the CEO will call and say, all right, describe your problem to me. Describe what we're lacking in our system. And more times than not, we get to a solution, which is pretty cool that a small little brand can push some of these larger vendors to solutions like that.
Anything you want to add to that? All right. That question could have been felt as I'm trying to help the vendors in the room, but I want everybody who's at a brand to think about the way that these guys approach, how vendors approach them, to having an open-minded way of thinking about new technology and how to evaluate whether it's worth your time to have the phone calls. That's why I asked the question. We are past the time, so can I get a round of applause for the Hoopers? Thank you.